Everybody. So for today, for our kind of homework help video, I wanted to actually do a little bit with Chapter 9 in Excel. And this video is inspired by a student who I was talking with earlier this week. And this student really prefers to use Excel over the calculator. And I was thinking, well, I didn't really cover that. So why don't I do an extra video? And then that way I can show you some tricks in Excel on how to get these values fast as well. And it's nice because in the homework, you can often export the data right to Excel. So it's kind of just a great little tool where you could kind of speed through some of these numbers easily. So here you have the data from our textbook. So this is one of the main examples we were working on in Chapter 9 in the lecture note videos. So I just copied the data into here. I just manually typed it all in. And I just have the X values in the first column. So this was the GDP. And then I have my Y values in the second column, which was CO2 emissions. And I have the three answers here, but I'm going to show you how I found them. So the first thing that you can find in Excel very quickly is your R value. So that's your correlation coefficient. And to do that, what you're going to do is type an equal sign and just start typing correlation. So I type CORR, and you will see that it pops up here. And if you read the description, it does say it returns the correlation coefficient between two data sets. So we're going to just double click on it. And then you enter array 1 and array 2. Now, when you do the correlation coefficient, you do want to enter it with your X values first and your Y values second. So I'm going to just highlight my X values. I'm going to press a comma, and then I'm going to highlight my Y values. And you could close the parentheses here, but you don't have to. And then you're just going to hit enter. And there is your correlation coefficient. That's it. So that R value there is all done for you. So if you don't want to go ahead and type the data set into your calculator to find it, and you don't want to do it by hand, I know I don't want to do it by hand, Excel is really nice and fast. So just to run through it one more time, you're going to hit equals. And then if you stop typing in correlation, you'll see CORREL. That is the function that you need. You highlight your X values first, put a comma, and then highlight your Y values second. Hit enter, and you have your correlation coefficient. So that's the R. Now, let's say you're trying to actually find the full regression line. There is a way to do a full regression analysis in Excel, but it does require some add-ins and things. So I'm not going to do the full kind of regression analysis here, but I am going to show you how to quickly get your slope and your y-intercept. And then that way you can plug them into your formula. So remember that when you're doing your regression analysis, we're talking about linear equations here. So again, there's lots of different kinds of regression. We're focusing on linear. So your equation is going to be something like mx plus b. So if we can find the m and the b, the slope and the y-intercept, then we can find our equation very quickly without having to run a full analysis. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. So you can find your slope. I already have it kind of set up here. And to find the slope, the formula we're going to use is slope. Really nice and easy. So hit equals and start typing in slope. And again, notice the description. It does say it returns the slope of the linear regression line through the given data points, which is what we want. So if you try searching linear regression, there's a lot of very complicated steps that will come up for Excel on how to run a full regression analysis, but we don't really need to do that for our class. We just need the slope and the y-intercept. So I'm going to double click the slope. Now, be careful here. It says Y's first and then X's. So the order is reversed. So I highlight my Y values first, put a comma, highlight my X values, and then just hit enter, and there is that slope of the regression line. So again, one more time, I hit equals, I start typing in slope, and then the tricky part here is that it's backwards. You do your Y values first, comma, your X values. And then for your y-intercept, again, this one's just as fast. You're going to hit equals, and you don't type in y, you just type in intercept. And again, you'll notice that it says it calculates the point at which the line intersects the y-axis using best fit regression line. So that's what we're using here. We're using our best fit regression line to get that equation. So we're using intercept. And again, it's y values first. So y values first, comma, X values second, hit enter, and there's your y-intercept. So one more time, equals, I just start typing intercept, double click, and then y values first, comma, x values second. So just be careful there. When you do the correlation coefficient, the order is x values first, y values second. And then if you actually want to find the slope and the y-intercept, it's reversed. Y values first, x values second. So just be really careful there. But once you have these two values, you can write your equation. So let's say I just use 3 decimal places. I could do y equals 199.535 x plus 56.036. So I just plug the slope and b into my equation, and now I have the actual regression equation really fast. So it is nice to do it in Excel. I am going to show you a couple of homework questions quick, not the full questions, but again, using Excel. So let me share another page. Let's see. All right, so here is homework section 9.2, and I just picked question 6 here again, just to kind of show you that beginning step. So here's your table, and this question does ask you to find the regression equation. So they give you the setup, but you have to find the slope and the y-intercept. Just be careful. This one asks us to round your slope to 3 decimal places and only round the y-intercept to 2 decimal places. So read carefully. But I can export this data. So if I click that little table there, I can export it into Excel. Let me stop sharing and show you that, that file. All right, let's see if I grab the right file. I think it's this one. So here is that data that I just exported. You can see I already did the workout. But what I can do now is I can just find my m and my b. So I just hit equals, and I start typing slope. And again, just be careful, y values first for your slope, comma, your x values. And then for the b value or your y-intercept, you're hitting intercept. And again, your y values first and your x values second. So these are my 2 values that I would plug in into that homework question for the m and the b. Very, very fast. So again, you really don't want to be using and doing these calculations by hand. It's just going to take you all day, really. And in the real world, we use technology here. So in the real world, someone is not sitting there crunching these numbers by hand. They would be using an Excel tool, or there's a ton of other wonderful math programming products out there that they would be using instead. So keep in mind these 2 values here. I'll go show you my answer. I already did it. Okay. And you can see that I just put those values right there. Now this one looks a little bit different because I had to round to 3 decimal places. So I ended up rounding up to 0.040 instead here. But there's my regression equation. And then now I can proceed with the rest of the problem using that equation. So using that equation to help me find the right graph or to help me plug in different values. Okay. And if I look at, oh, sorry guys, give me 1 second. I have too many things open. I'm going to find you a 9.1 homework assignment too. Okay. All right, so here's 9.1, and this is question 10. Again, I already went through and did it, but I just want to show you really that beginning piece here of how do you find the R value using Excel. So the first thing you can do, obviously, is open up your data table here, and for the scatter plot, what I did is I picked out a few points and I matched them. So for instance, I started with this first point, 61,103, and I looked at each graph and I noticed that my axes are going by 2s here. So I counted up, so 54, 6, 8, 60. So 61 is gonna be right about here. And then I noticed that this point here would be that value. And that looks good, right? It looks like it's around 61,103. And I checked my other graphs too, and I noticed that my last two graphs didn't work. I don't even actually have the value of 60 on my x-axis. So I could exclude those two graphs in this particular case and focus on the first two. And then again, I just picked a few more points and I just checked to see which ones matched. And I was able to figure out that graph A matches. Now, if I look at graph A, I don't really see a very strong pattern here at all. Maybe there's some slight positive linearity there, right? I do kind of see maybe a slight upward trend here. If I ignore this point for a second, I can see a slight upward trend, but nothing super strong. So we're going to calculate the R value next. And what you could do here is, again, click this little box, and then you're going to go ahead and open this file in Excel. So once you're in Excel here, hang on one second. Then now we're just looking for the R value. So again, just to recap one more time, you're going to hit equals. Oh, hang on, let me enable editing. So we're going to hit equals and start with that correlation coefficient. Double click. Now here you do it in the normal order. So I do my X values first, comma, my Y values second. Okay, just putting the two arrays in order. And then we're just going to hit enter and we can get our R value that way. So notice the R value here is about 0.024. And if I go back to my question, you can see I already typed it in. Excuse me, and it was correct, 0.024. So again, if you're not into using the calculator so much or you don't have it at home and you prefer Excel, then here are just some helpful tips that you can use for Excel. Or for those of you who are using the calculator, but maybe Excel is still faster, I highly recommend you use these couple functions there for Excel, and you should be able to get through the homework much faster than if you're trying to do it by hand. So I hope this video helped you guys with some Excel tips for Chapter 9. And again, though, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. And have a good one.